Okay, so yeah, this session is basically called Drupal 8 caching. I'd like to throw the word metadata in there. So if you guys were deciding between the other session and this session, you were hoping that I'd give you awesome an overarching caching strategy is how to make Drupal 8 super fast. This isn't it. This is more looking at the cache property in render arrays and its metadata and how it can be manipulated and used to do cool things. At least I thought it was pretty cool. So let's get started. And I won't be offended if you want to go to the other session. It's not a problem. I'll be sad, but I won't be offended. So Drupal 8 Cache API and tacos. Now, I'm not going to be giving out tacos. And so if you want to leave now again, that's fine. I won't be offended. OK, so first, it's traditional to introduce oneself. My name is Märt Matsoo in English and Mrt Matsoo in Estonian. I'm originally from Canada, from Toronto, but now I live in Estonia. I've been working with Drupal since 2008, and I fortunately lucked into Drupal by deciding to use it to build the Estonian Foreign Ministry website back in 2008. And I was kind of deciding between different open source content management systems, and I lucked out, and I've been working with Drupal ever since. So I work for Chromatichq, and I've been there for almost 2 years. And Chromatichq is a US-based distributed company, so we all work from home. Most of the people are in the States, but we have one Canadian who's in France, and then another Canadian Estonian who's in Estonia. So that's our logo. And we've been around for about 10 years, so just a little blurb on the company. Distributed, I mentioned that. And we're always looking for talent, as every single company that works with Drupal seems to do. So you can check us out at chromatichq.com. And now it's taco time. OK, so first I'm just going to make no assumptions. And I like to use this little example. And I actually like it so much that I put it into practice last night. If any of you went out after the dinner, we went to several bars. And when it hit 2:30 a.m. or so, I thought it's time to go home. And I walked by a McDonald's. And I found that I was hungry. And I went in, and I got myself a Big Mac, no lie. Now, imagine if I actually wanted a Big Mac, but I didn't have a McDonald's to get one at. If I had to go to a supermarket, buy all the ingredients, go home, cook it all. It's a difference, I don't know, that would take me hours probably. So like, for caching, minutes and hours with a Big Mac. And then when we're talking with web pages, a cached page being served up, you're serving up something that's already finished and ready versus having the server put everything together, running all sorts of database queries, getting the markup, and then sending it to the browser. So basically, on my local environment, when I was preparing for this, it's the difference of, with a cold cache of about 3 seconds, my page would load, and the cached version would load in milliseconds, 281 milliseconds, for instance. So anyway, and then I wanted to touch on Drupal render arrays, because they're kind of part and parcel to this presentation. Simply, they came around in Drupal 7, and they make up like the building blocks of the page, and it's something that I frankly don't, I'm not an expert in them. One of our colleagues, Gus, did a presentation at DrupalCon New Orleans about render arrays, and it's basically the preferred way, instead of using the theme function now, and it has been now for years, obviously, to build the building blocks, what you're doing. So, and the power in them is that you can extend, alter, and override parts of the page before the markup is rendered in the template. So it gives a lot of flexibility in being able to change anything before it gets rendered. And so I don't know if you can see it from that far away. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you've maybe seen the render function surrounding the content variable, and you've maybe wondered, and again, years ago, maybe you wondered when you started with Drupal 7 going, what's this render? Why is render all of a sudden all these templates? Which it wasn't in Drupal 6, as I can recall. Anyway, and the reason I mention all of this is because when you're looking into cache, and I was doing the research, everywhere it talked about render arrays. And then here the line is, it's important that our render array knows to cache itself. And then from Drupal.org, so DO, it is of the utmost importance that you inform the render API of the cacheability of a render array. So that makes it sound pretty important. So I just wanted to touch on render arrays because it's part and parcel to what I'm talking about here. So now, I'm going to give you a bit of background as to why tacos, because you're probably wondering why. So this is originally a blog post that I wrote back in February because I basically, at Chromatichq, we're encouraged to write blog posts so that we can get smarter and just kind of as a marketing tool as well. And I wanted to learn more about caching, so I looked into it, and then at the same time we had started using a service called Hey Taco, and I'll get to that in a minute. And the reason I'm doing a presentation on it too, I thought, well, this is an interesting topic, and my little badge of honor is that when I wrote that blog post, the big man, Dries himself, retweeted it. So I thought, wow, well, maybe this is something that people are interested in, or just he is. So anyway, that was my 15 minutes of fame. And so, now tacos, I can't talk about them enough. Why tacos? Because of Slack. I'm sure a lot of you, if not most of you, all of you use Slack. And Hey Taco is an app for Slack that is a paid service, believe it or not, and the whole point of it is you hand out tacos to your colleagues to show appreciation. So basically, you help me debug something, I send you a taco, and the Hey Taco service keeps track of it. And it sounds stupid and silly, but we actually use it, and it's kind of a mini motivator for us. We hand out tacos, whether it's for doing a good job, whether it's for saying something funny. And Hey Taco keeps track. So for instance, we had a team meeting the other week, and since I'm in Estonia, which is 7 or 8 hours ahead of most of the other people that I work with, their day's just starting, mine is ending. I was actually having a glass of wine, and somebody noticed this. And then Adam sent me a taco because he thought that was funny. And then everyone else started sending me tacos. I hope you can see this. And then finally, I made the comment that, wow, I'm genuinely getting alcohol tacos. So I was getting like appreciation for drinking on the job. So anyway, if that sounds good to you, you can use Hey Taco too and try to earn tacos. And then when you send the Hey Taco bot a keyword like leaderboard, it spits out the leaderboard. Sadly, I'm down in 9th, but so you get the idea. This is what it looks like. So my idea with caching was, hey, we use this Hey Taco thing, but only we see it. I wonder if they have an API and I could grab the info from there and we could put it on our website if we want. And it turns out, hey, Hey Taco does have an API. So you send a request and it sends back some JSON that you can do whatever you want with. So knowing that, I said, now I'm going to write a blog post, and now it's a presentation. So I'm just going to mention about all the parts that it took to do this, because I find it was pretty interesting. It wasn't just like a one-step process. If anyone uses the drush core quick Drupal command to spin up a kind of self-standing Drupal instance, I recommend it. Basically, with one command, you can have a fresh install of Drupal running. It runs its own web server, and it uses a SQLite database, so you don't have to sit there and create your own with all the steps of maybe adding a new vhost or anything like that in Apache. You just run this one command, and it just, boom, spins up Drupal for you, and you can start playing around. So you want to test out some new modules, or in my case, I created a custom module called Hey Taco, and the whole point of it was to create a block. So I used the block plugin, extended it, and created my own custom block. And that custom code that I have in there grabs the JSON from the Hey Taco API, and then we finally get to the caching part where I played around with the cache settings. And what I also did just for fun is to suck up to the bosses. We have 3 owners at Chromatichq. I would add 100 tacos to their total before showing the leaderboard, so that when they see it, they see, wow, I've got a lot of tacos. But when all the other workers see it, I've added information that their stats have been padded, don't feel bad. So anyway, it was basically just trying to have fun with it. And then I also had to create a twig template so that I could output it the way I wanted. So anyway, just to give you an idea, if Chris, who's one of our partners, logs in, this is what he sees. It just says, hi, Chris. He's in first place, and he's like, wow, I've got a lot of tacos, that's great. Now, if somebody else logs in, they get these asterisks, and at the bottom it says, partners results padded by 100 tacos. Now, the whole point of this is each of these blocks is cached, but it's cached differently for the different person. So it's like dynamic caching. Depending on who you are, it's still cached. And now we'll get into the cache properties metadata. So there's 4 things: keys, contexts, tags, and max age. So basically, I'll just mention what it says about them here from Drupal.org, that of those 4 tags, the contexts, the tags, and the max age must always be set because they affect the cacheability of the entire response, and they bubble up to the parents, and so the parents automatically receive these settings. And then it also says that the keys must only be set if the render array should be cached. So basically, if you want it to be cached, you need to set the keys. So now you're going to see kind of what it looks like. So this is a screenshot. It's pretty tough to read, I suppose, of my custom block plugin. And there's a build function there. And so basically, that creates the block. And just like any block in the block admin interface, I put it onto the sidebar, the first sidebar. And then this is the bigger part of what the cache keys look like. So this whole talk is basically down to this part here, the cache property and its metadata. And we'll go through them one by one. So the keys. So from Drupal.org, like what identifies the thing that I'm rendering. So this is like the name of it, what uniquely identifies it. Since I have a custom block called Hey Taco, I don't think anything else is going to be using Hey Taco, so I just gave it the name Hey Taco block. So this is like the what. Now, and again, I mentioned that this must be set if the render array should be cached. So context, this is where things get a little bit more fun. This is, does the representation of the thing I'm rendering vary per something? And so this is what I mentioned. Our partner Chris would see it one way, Alana would see it a different way, and I would see it a third way. But it's all being cached. And this context that I put there for this case is user. And so Drupal then knows that, okay, depending on which user it is, I have to show a different context of this block. So I call it the which. And for people who like their HTTP headers, it also says that cache contexts are completely analogous to HTTP's vary header. So if that helps you understand it better, all the power to you. Now it's not just user-based. There's all kinds of different contexts you can use. So it can be based on IP, time zone. So basically, you can tell Drupal that, okay, if it's this person in a different time zone, use this version of the cached block. So from that perspective, there's all kinds of combinations that you can use. Now, and tags. Which things does it depend upon so that when those things change, so should the representation? So basically, this is what is it that would invalidate this cache? So basically, and this is what was pretty neat for me during the development, I ran into some trouble with it because I was like, okay, it has to be when a user changes something. So say I change my username from Märt to my full name, Mrt Matsoo or something, that should invalidate the cache. And using this, if you can read it from back there, it says user_list is the tag that I use. Now, finding out that that tag actually exists in Drupal and is like, Drupal knows what that means was tough, and I actually didn't find that anywhere. It was a colleague of mine who recommended that I use it, because before, I think I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. I'll get back to that in a sec, sorry, I got lost. But, and you really can't see what it says down there, but basically the point is, this first one says, hi Märt, and it's what I described just a minute ago, and I changed my username, and now it says hi Mrt Matsoo. So the changing of the username invalidated the cache, and then now I get a new version. So this is what I was alluding to before. When I was originally developing it, I was like, okay, I have to tell Drupal which users have to be included to invalidate the cache. And I had this laborious process of finding all the user IDs, creating an array with them, and then building this cache tag, kind of like that. But it turns out that all I needed to know was that I could do user_list, and the only way we found that out was because Gus, again, that I mentioned before, said, you know, I've seen a cache tag called node list. I wonder if user can be used the same way. And it turns out, yes, it can. So this is one of the beauties of, I guess, Drupal or any open source. The documentation is sometimes hard to find or non-existent, but there's all kinds of priceless little pearls that you can come across. So anyway, and then the fourth and final one is max age, and this one's pretty self-explanatory. After how long should this cache invalidate itself? So the default is forever, and you have cache permanent. So if you don't put anything, it'll just let itself be cached forever, and it's measured in seconds. So I have 3,600 seconds, 1 hour from my example. And so basically, that's pretty much it for these parts of it. And this is just showing the twig template that I built. And so, in conclusion, it's basically, let's remember to use render arrays, and that's the cache property that can be used. And we have keys, contexts, tags, and max age, these. But what I really encourage is to play around with it, because this whole process for me basically was a lot wider than just caching. I got to play with Drush Quick Core Drupal, twig templates. I created a custom block plugin which had its own challenges as well. Learned more about dependency injection thereby. And my bonus suggestion, sorry, the name was coming in Estonian, not English, is to use this Drush Quick Core Drupal Qt and just spin things up and play around, because it really kind of gives you the freedom to experiment with little cost. So, I don't know, did that even last 5 minutes? Because what I could try to do is take questions, or I also have this Drush Qt spun up, and I can basically just show you that, may as well since I'm talking about it. Show you that it works differently for different people. Let's see. I'll just spin up the web server again. And so here's an example of me. And now let's make sure the cache is not the boop, boop, boop. Clear the cache. And let's hope this works. So yeah, it took 3.98 seconds. So what I'm going to show you now is, if now I'm in the same thing as an administrator, I'm going to change someone's username. Let's change mine. It's tough to type with one hand. And so now, where was I? Opera. Oops. With any luck, without clearing the cache, it knew to invalidate itself, because the user, remember this is from user list, was updated, and boom, now it changed it without clearing the cache. It knew. And then I think that's about it. So if there are any questions.
What was the change you did make that quickly?
Sorry?
What
oh, sorry, my name.
No, I asked, what change did you make to that page?
The block originally that was cached had my first name, and then I changed it. Is that what you mean? Then I added my last name, and then it added my last name.
How did you make it cached?
Ah. It was this part here.
Yes.
Because originally it was cached as my, with only one name. But what I was showing was that just by changing the user, updating the user, the cache knew that it has to update itself. Because I mean, if I didn't have, let's see.
What code did you change?
Which did I change?
What code did you change to make it cached?
Well, it's cached anyway because of all of these. I mean, it's cached out of the box because of this.
Okay.
So sorry, maybe I'm misunderstanding the question.
Yeah. Okay. I was just making sure. That's okay.
Okay, sorry. Well, we can talk later if you can. So anyway, yeah. So that's.
I didn't get answer. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Any other questions?
When you go ahead and
That's a good question. I can't answer it. I'm not sure. Anything else? From way back there. So the question that I heard was, can you pre-warm the cache after like a change has been made so you don't have to wait for the initial page load to get it cached? I haven't tested with it. I'm not sure. This was basically the extent of like what I was playing with, just to get it to change and based on the user changing his or her information. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. That's it. Enjoy lunch.